دلم حسرت کربلا آه کربلا کربلا کربلا.
It's an honor to be with you, brothers and sisters, for the next few nights. Alhamdulillah, this is the fourth time that I've been invited and the invitation has been realized. Because I was invited many times to Denver, right, different places. And each time this impediment would arise. But alhamdulillah, this time I was fortunate to this letter. And then from the second session, I kind of branch off into a specific area to start off with. Although the committee here did give me a set of themes to cover, inshallah I'll cover them. I think this letter is worth explaining, especially for you, those who have been brought up here. So with your permission, I'll start. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. All praises are Allah's, Lord of the worlds. And may His peace and blessings be upon our Master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and His pure, immaculate Ahlul Bayt.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
This letter is an invitation to Islam for the West. So the audience is a Western audience. The letter is how this Western audience should be invited to Islam. So it's something everyone here should first know about and then maybe practice. Because when you want to introduce Islam, maybe it matters to who the audience is. The approach may differ depending on which culture, country, geography they come from. Now this letter was a spiritual, political letter. Although with your permission I won't go into the political aspects of it. The author of the letter was the late Imam Khomeini. And he wrote it to the then president of the Soviet Union, which was Gorbachev. But in this letter, there are 4 or 5 paragraphs, which I'll read in a minute, where he tells Gorbachev what he has to do. Although the letter is addressed to Gorbachev, it's for the West in general, as will become evident in a minute. But the approach Imam lays out, and there are many sensitive points in this letter that we can benefit from. So, here Imam, he tells Gorbachev that you have to research and investigate Islam, and then I put in quotes, not because Islam or Muslims are in need of you, but rather to acknowledge that Islam's lofty and global values can constitute the means of comfort and savior for all nations, as well as unknotting humanity's essential difficulties. So Imam was very confident. He's gone all the way. He knows what Islam is all about. He knows how we have to invite people. He's very confident that he can sort out the difficulties that the West are suffering from. Now, there are 4 paragraphs which are important here. Although the last paragraph is the most important, but just to lead to that last paragraph, I'll start from the first. So Imam says, our innate nature, our fitra, pulls us towards acquiring perfection in power and knowledge. Hence, there exists pure power. Okay. So our fitra, innate nature, pulls us towards acquiring perfection in power and knowledge. Seeking perfection in power and knowledge is something we all have. If someone tells you, I'm not looking for perfection, it's a bit abnormal. Everyone, be you Muslim or non-Muslim, they're seeking this. Hence there exists pure power and knowledge for us to have been attracted to it in the first place. This is an inner pull towards perfection in power and knowledge. And it exists in everyone. So there must exist pure power and knowledge for everyone to be pulled towards it. And that source of all power and knowledge is Almighty God, to whom we are all heading towards, even if we're not aware of it. This is a very delicate point Imam is mentioning here. And he's mentioned this in other works of his, where he says even the idol worshipper is worshipping Allah, but he's not aware of it. Otherwise, Iyaka na'bud. Only from this verse, we understand that only Allah can be worshipped. No other entity can be worshipped. So when you see different forms of worship around the world, they're worshipping Allah, the real Allah, but they're not aware of it. Man wants to reach to absolute truth in order to be annihilated in God. The craving and yearn towards an eternal life is incorporated within us all, and this itself indicates the existence of an eternal cosmos that is death-free. That's another concept that Imam was just referring to, that there's no end to the cosmos. We don't believe in that in Islam. The cosmos will always be. And even more significant, there's no beginning to it. It always was. Different cycles of prophets, different cycles of mankind, they come one after the other. There's no end. Allah is never manifestationless. Assuming your excellency, now look at the adab, the etiquette, Imam in front of this non-Muslim, communist maybe. Be careful when you speak with people of whatever belief they are, whatever tendency, you always have to preserve the etiquette. Assuming your excellency would like to research in these domains, the domains of Irfan, because the preceding paragraph was philosophical and Irfani in nature. Assuming your excellency would like to research in these domains, you can instruct the scholars of such sciences to refer to the writings of Farabi and Avicenna, may Allah's mercy be upon them, in addition to books on Western philosophy. So here the first course of action is delineated here now by Imam. He's saying, tell your scholars in the then Soviet Union, in addition to the books of philosophy that they're reading, Western philosophy, refer to the works of Farabi and Avicenna, two important Muslim philosophers who have contributed a lot. I mean, the personality itself isn't important, it's how they understood from the Quran, how they understood from the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt. They understood in a different way to maybe many theologians. Please refer to those books. Tell your scholars to refer to these books. By doing so, it will become evident that A, the law of causation, cause and effect, upon which all forms of knowledge is based, is rational in nature and not sensible. It's not perceived by the senses. The law of cause and effect, upon which all knowledge is based upon, it's rational in nature. You can't see it, you can't hear it. And B, the perception of universal meanings, upon which all forms of reasoning depends, is also rational in nature and not sensible. Also, you can instruct the scholars of such sciences to refer to the writings of Suhrawardi, who's a philosopher, an Arif, a Gnostic. Now he's telling this, the second step now. Refer to the writings of Suhrawardi, who lived around 900 years ago. May Allah's mercy be upon him, on illuminationist, Ishraqi philosophy, so that they explain to you that the body or any physical being is in entire need of pure light, which is sense-free. Any physical being, any body, any physical existence, its existence is dependent upon pure light. A pure light that is sense-free. You can't see it with the five senses. And that man's inner witnessing of one's self is totally independent from the senses. That I, the essence of what we are, that you can't see with the senses, but you can witness it, but not with the senses. There's a delicate point there. I'll refer to it inshallah tomorrow. Then Imam continues in the third paragraph. Furthermore, request your greater scholars and professors. Before he would say scholars. Now he's saying request your greater scholars and professors to refer to the transcendental philosophy of Mullah Sadra. May Almighty Allah's pleasure be upon him, and may Allah resurrect him with the prophets and the righteous ones. The righteous ones aren't only people like you, it's a specific degree of ismat, the Salihin. So that it becomes known to them. Now he's now introducing Mullah Sadra 400 years ago, maybe a bit more or less. So that it becomes known to them that verily the truth and reality of knowledge is an immaterial existent, and all forms of thought are matter-free, and so are not governed by the physical rules and laws. The reality of knowledge is immaterial. Why does Imam want them to refer to such writings? Why is this even important for them to know? Because we believe that we are our knowledge. We are our actions. The I, that which our personal identity, that which our essence consists in, is an immaterial reality. And then our actions, when they become incorporated within the soul, they become in unity with us. That's why we believe that we are our actions. Ad-dunya mazra'atul akhirah. The world is the hereafter's farmyard. The hereafter has an infinite number of levels. But only this world is a physical realm of existence. All other realms of existence are metaphysical. It's in the hereafter now. It's another realm of existence. It's not physical. But in this world, every action that we do, when that action becomes incorporated within us, we become that action. And therefore, from moment to moment, we're building our hereafter, right now in this world. We're building our barzakh. We're building our heaven, inshallah. Every time, every moment, moment to moment. Because all the metaphysical realms of existence are dimensions of the soul. The soul is important. It's infinite. We believe that the soul is post-eternal. There's no end to the soul. It's going to persist post-eternally. That's why heaven and hell will be eternal truths. It's all a dimension of the soul. But your actions in this world are going to designate and how your hereafter is going to be. Heaven, barzakh, these metaphysical realms of existence exist right now. From moment to moment you're building them. And the traditions speak about this reality in sensitive and delicate ways. And we'll come to one or two of them inshallah with time. But the world is the hereafter's farmyard. Now the farm is the soul, is you. The farmer is you. The seeds are you. The actions have become incorporated. And the harvest will be you. And is you right now, but you don't see it. You don't see your barzakhi, your heavenly reality now. Some people do. But from moment to moment, you're creating your hereafter. Then Imam says, I shan't tire you further, and shall not name books of the Gnostics, the Urafa, especially those of Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, because assuming you desire to be informed of the discussions and writings of this great personality. Now, before he would say, tell your scholars or your greater scholars to research the XYZ scholar. Here, he says, assuming you desire to be informed of the discussions and writings of this great personality, you must send a number of your genius, specialist experts who have a strong basis in such matters to Qom. You have to send them now. Don't tell them to study it, you have to send them to Qom. This letter was written in the late 80s, 1980. So that after several years, with tawakkul, reliance upon Allah, they can become aware of the depth and thinner than hair delicateness of the stations of gnosis, Irfan, Ma'rifah, for without making such a journey, awareness of such knowledge is not feasible. So you see now, Imam mentions Ibn Arabi's name, Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi, who lived around 800 years ago. I don't recall exactly when. Now, at that time, in Qom, the common trend of the houses, the seminary schools, was that at best they would say he was a Sunni Muslim. Some would even say he was a kafir. Now it doesn't matter whether he was Sunni or Shia. He was a Muslim Sufi. Although many Ayatollahs such as Hassan Zada Amuli, Jawadi Amuli, the Imam himself have proved in its own place that he was Shia. But that's not the point here. The point is, Imam is suggesting this man and his works for these people. And then at the end of the letter he says, finally allow me to explicitly announce that the Islamic Republic of Iran, as the largest and most powerful headquarters in the Islamic world, can easily fill the doctrinal vacuums of your system and state. And that's a claim. It's a big claim too. Now Gorbachev didn't accept, and it didn't really proceed far. But still, the political dimensions, we don't need to bother ourselves. There's a point here of how to approach the West in relation to Islam. Many of you may have been born and bred in another country. So when you come here, you can't approach the West with how you were taught Islam. Imam gave a number of names. He believes they're very important because of the approach they have. Now what that approach is, I'm going to suggest something in a minute. But just one other comment, Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh, in one of his works, has written that if one distances oneself from books like the commentary of Isharat and Shifa, both by Ibn Sina, Asfar by Mullah Sadra, Fusus and Futuhat by Ibn Arabi, gives this list of names. If one distances oneself from these books, one has barred and prevented oneself from understanding that addressed to the Holy Prophet, meaning the Quran. Now, for the common lay person, naturally, it's going to be very difficult to read these books, even for the seminary students. But still, there are many scholars, such as Allama Tabatabai, Imam himself, and Ayatollah Hassan Zadeh Amuli. These people simplify these works for the common lay person, and they describe it in a simple manner, that is accessible to all. That would be worth reading. Al-Mizan is a book which is worth reading. All of Imam's books are worth reading. 40 Hadith, The Etiquettes of Prayer. Ayatollah Hassanzadeh, he has many works. All of them are good. Although I don't think they've been translated into English, but in Farsi and Arabic they exist. Now what is that issue that these books on Irfan have, which is so important, especially when you want to introduce Islam to the West? And it's important also for me and you. We can benefit from it too, but here this was confined to the West in this letter. Not that we don't adopt it either. Well, most of you who are brought up here, you have to. But even those who weren't brought up here, this has an important message underlying here. Islam is one reality, but it has a lot of different layers to it. There's not only one layer to Islam. All layers are important. In the hierarchy of things, some things have priority over others. That which is very important is the Sharia, by way of example. The letter of the law is important. True, it's a first step out of 100 steps, but you can't progress without it. I will speak more about this Sharia later, what it is, its reality. Aqa'id also is very important, if not more important than the Sharia, but you have to do them both together. Tawheed, we have to know what Tawheed is. Nabuwwat, Ma'ad, prophethood, resurrection. These are important realities. Aqa'id is very important. It has to be understood by oneself. You can't do taqleed in aqa'id. It's not permissible. The reason is because the knowledge per se, the knowledge of taqleed, the knowledge of aqa'id, Islamic doctrine, the knowledge of tawheed per se, the knowledge of prophethood, the knowledge per se of resurrection. Here, the knowledge itself is spirit building. It builds you. The knowledge itself builds you. That's why with your own rationality you have to understand these things. To any degree. You can ask for help, but you have to understand. If you don't, you say you don't understand. That's okay. There's no need to be scared. If you don't understand, you don't. But that much that you do will be accepted. But you have to understand. You can't say, I believe in Tawheed because X person said so. You can get help and get explanation from X person. But you have to understand it at the end of the day, to any degree that is within your capacity. So the knowledge builds you, knowing builds you. That's why taqleed is impermissible in relation to aqa'id. But in fiqh, in ahkam, in the Sharia, there the knowledge per se is not spirit building. The knowledge that salat is like that, or salat, the different rules of salat, hajj, all the different rulings that we have, the knowledge itself isn't spirit building. That which is spirit building in the domain of the Sharia is acting according to that knowledge. Acting on a par with that knowledge. That action is spirit building, not the knowledge of ahkam. Now, we want to act on a par with the Sharia, so it's only rationally expected of us to go to those people who are most knowledgeable in relation to the Sharia. This is a rational endeavor. Islam doesn't tell you to do this. Rationality tells you, you want to practice Islam. You want to go to, for example, you have diabetes, you want to go to a top doctor. I mean, there's some illnesses, doesn't matter which doctor you go to. drinking alcohol is haram, it's not a question of taqleed anymore. It doesn't matter who you go to there. Even taqleed doesn't even apply. There are some things which are fundamentals. But there are some illnesses that no, it's important which doctor you go to. You want the best doctor here. And then there are differences of regimens between the different doctors. One gives this regime, one gives this regime of medication. You want the best, you have diabetes. Rationality tells you to go to the best. How do you know who's the best? You go and investigate. Here also the same applies. You want to act in order to build your spirit on a par with the Sharia. So you go to those who are most learned. Once you establish that, you follow them. Now in medicine, no one questions the specialist, for example. Well, you gave 20 cc's, can't you give 30 or that? Now, some people say it's like people who follow a manager is like they're like cattle, just blindly following it. That's not true. That language is not very polite either when they compare me and you to cattle. It's a rational endeavor. We want the best, the most knowledgeable. We're rationally endeavoring to find it. Once we find it, they have more expertise. In any case, Islam has many layers. One is the Sharia, one is aqa'id. But aqa'id taqlid isn't permissible though. Aqa'id builds the spirit. Tawheed has to be firmly incorporated within you. If Tawheed is not firmly incorporated within you, it doesn't matter how much salat you do, how much fasting you do, it won't have too much of an effect. Because salat and other actions are harvesters. They harvest, they reap what you have sown. But you have to sow the seeds of aqa'id firmly within you. Now that doesn't mean that if your aqa'id is weak, you forget the salat. No. There's a limit, there's a minimum you have to do every day. But they're harvesters, they reap what you sow. Even Shimr, La'natullah Ali, would do Salatul Layl every night. But why was that Salatul Layl insignificant? There was something wrong. There was something wrong in that Tawheed, something wrong in that Nubuwwat, something wrong in Ma'ad. And when Salat is done tastelessly, not only will it have no effect, but then it can enhance one's ego too. One has to be careful. But the minimum, no, you can't compromise with the minimum. The red lines that the Sharia gives, 5 salats a day. Even if that is done tastelessly, unfortunately, if that were to be the case, you would still have to do them. And there's a reason why that has to be done as a minimum, but we'll come to it maybe later. Anyway, Islam has many degrees, many layers, many dimensions. The verses of the Quran, some traditions say that each verse has 7 dimensions to it. Some say 70, some say 70,000. There's no end. There's no end to it. This Quran in our hands is a physical Quran with the Arabic script. The essence of the book, the mother of the book, is infinite. It's Allah's knowledge which has descended to this physical form. Don't just take the superficial layer. Explore it. Go deeper. Elevate your spirits. Grow, mature existentially to understand, acquire these truths. In Irfan, the aim is for you to breathe Islam morning and night. In every action you do, from moment to moment, it wants you to breathe the articles of faith. So if salat, yeah, okay, 5 times a day we have that, but then in the Quran there's a code given in relation to those who truly do salat. It says, الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ da'imun, those who are constantly in prayer. They preserve their prayer constantly. That prayer isn't the physical prayer. You can't do the physical prayer 24/7. But these people are da'imun, they're constant prayers. What is it that they do? They do the essence of prayer. What's the essence of prayer? Aqim as-salah li-dhikri. Execute the salat to recall me. The 5 times of salat that we have a day, which is wajib, can never be compromised with. However high you become, however ma'soom you become, that's a minimum. It's a conduit, it's a route to recalling Allah more and more during the day. In all articles of faith, the way the Urafa interpret them is in a manner that it applies to us today, right now. And that's the key. So when the Urafa speak of death, barzakh, heaven, sirat, the bridge, the questioning of the angels, all these things are happening right now. That's what they believe. Or they should be happening right now. Instead of relaying all of them, it will happen one day. Barzakh, it will happen one day. Heaven and hell, one day it will come to be. The questioning of the angels, it will happen one day. The sirat, this bridge, it will come one day. The coming of the 12th Imam, it will happen one day. All of this, you're just relaying it to one day. It's as if you're putting religion on credit. And it's okay. If you relate everything in religion to one day, still you're a believer, you're sincere, inshallah you'll go to heaven. But is that it? What the Urafa do though, by exploring the inner dimensions of religion, they apply everything to right now. They don't put religion on credit. One has to breathe Islam, morning after morning, night after night. So just to give a few examples of how they interpret certain articles of faith. We usually speak of death as something, a physical death, which will happen after 70, 80, 90 or 100 years, whatever. And we only think that is death. The Urafa have a different classification of death. And then there's a kind of death that they want us to experience every day. And they base it on traditions of the Prophet and Imams. Mutu qabla an tamutu. Die before you die. Die a spiritual death before you die a physical death. What does spiritual death mean? It's also sometimes called voluntary death. Death here means any transition from one realm to a higher realm. And that's why we call that physical death, death. Because on dying a physical death, let's say after 100 years, you enter barzakh, it's another realm. It's an immaterial realm, it's a higher realm. But the Urafa is saying, this mortal, die before you die, you can enter barzakh and other realms right now in this world. You have that capacity. You can acquire heaven in this world. You can see the dominions of the heavens and the earth right now, whilst awake in this world. You can undergo mi'raj in this world. It's open to us as salatu mi'rajul mu'min. This isn't confined to the prophets. This is a protocol for me and you. We can undergo mi'raj. We can ascend. About mi'raj, we'll speak about it another time. But this is for you. We have to see the benefits of our actions in this world. We have to live Islam. Not just relate everything to one day we'll see it, everything will happen. Well, our youth may say, well, what if it's all lies? See, what good is that when we explain religion and relate everything to one day and then tell everyone you have to have faith. Just have faith that one day it will happen. That doesn't have to be the case. The traditions of the Ahlul Bayt aren't teaching us this. We can live the articles of faith right now. Everyone to their own degree. Let's not get excited. It starts with the Sharia though. Ar-ru'ya juz'un min an-nubuwwah. Dreaming, sleeping is a component of prophethood. What's all that about? How many types of prophethood do we have? See, the traditions speak about this. We only think of one form of prophethood. Then dreaming is a form and a component, a part of prophethood. Which part of prophethood? When we sleep, we automatically become detached from the worldly life, automatically, because we're asleep now. That detachment from the worldly life leads the spirit to ascend, automatically. Muslim or non-Muslim, you will ascend to immaterial realms, Muslim or non-Muslim. You will receive divine knowledge, Muslim or non-Muslim. Then the soul converts that divine knowledge into pictures. Now here it depends on the purity of the soul now. When it converts that data into pictures, are they just messed up pictures? But the capacity is high. Dreams are a form of communication between us and Allah. We can benefit a lot from them. Although one's dreams are one's own proof. You can't go and say to other people, I had a dream, so listen. What you can do is, first of all, never explain your dreams to others, but when you have a good dream with a message, you can explain it in a rational framework to others. Many people have done that. But you have to explain it in a rational framework. You can't just tell them, I had a dream, so you listen. That's nothing to do with them. Why do you think the Sharia tells you to do wudu before sleeping? I mean, you're going to sleep now. It's not a physical thing, just to wash yourself. Why does it say do the wudu? Why does the Sharia say recite this chapter, that chapter before sleeping? Recite these salawats before sleeping. There's a purpose behind this. The soul is about to ascend. Before ascending, do a few a'mal. Purify yourselves. Islam has a program even for us when we're sleeping. Concerning barzakh, we say it will happen one day after physical death. But barzakh exists right now. It's in our hands. We're creating that barzakh. It's a dimension of the soul. Each person is in unity with his own barzakh. In relation to the questioning of the angels, it will happen one day in the grave. The grave has to be explained. What is meant by the grave? Will there be the questioning of the angels? It's the physical reality. Are they physical voices? What are angels? What are the different forms of angels? فَتَمَثَّلَ لَهَا بَشَرًا سَوِيًّا. When Archangel Gabriel appeared before Lady Maryam, alayhi salam, Archangel Gabriel, an angel, appeared as a man. What form of existence of an angel was that? These things have to be covered. And then one comes to a point that the questioning of the angels, according to the scholars, Sheikh Mufid, Faiz Kashani, these people, and contemporary scholars, the questioning of the angel is happening every moment of your life in this world. Moment after moment. And your actions are answering to those questions. And those actions will be embodied in the hereafter. Heaven and hell. How do we describe heaven and hell to the youth? Just tell them the red monster with horns waiting to burn you, whip you. Then the youth say, but why will the monster whip us? Because you didn't do salat. And then say, well, why should I bother Allah? See, and they're right. Of course Allah doesn't punish. Why should Allah punish? So how are we going to explain this punishment then? How are we going to explain the philosophy of punishment? And then we always explain it in a way there's this external... Oh, sorry. Sorry. We explain it in a way which is detrimental to the spiritual growth of our youth. There's something outside us waiting for us to whip us and everything. Whereas the rationale of divine punishment is tajassumul a'mal. Nothing to do with Allah. Allah doesn't punish you in hell. You punish yourself. Your actions in this world that you incorporated are going to be embodied. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ أَمْوَالَ الْيَتَامَى ظُلْمًا إِنَّمَا يَأْكُلُونَ فِي بُطُونِهِمْ نَارًا. Those who consume the orphan's property wrongfully, إِنَّمَا يَأْكُلُونَ, they're only consuming fire in their stomachs. Right now, when they're doing this sin, they're consuming fire, they're burning. Due to one's absorption in the physical world, though, one doesn't see the burning yet. On physical death, they will see it, and it's going to be painful. It doesn't have to be a physical burning. Punishment doesn't have to be a physical hell. Immaterial hell is much worse. You imagine in your dreams someone coming with fire to you, and sticking fire, you wake up. But there'll be no waking up. So here, with our own actions, we are creating our own hell, moment to moment. Don't blame Allah. You only have yourselves to blame. And the director is you. You are creating your hell from moment to moment. Or you're creating your heaven. It's all in your hands. And then we explain resurrection in a way which it's difficult. The youth, they don't like it. Then the Mi'raj, there are many issues in relation to the Mi'raj, how it underwent. Sometimes described an angel came, knocked on the door. The Holy Prophet answered the door, said, come on this donkey, it's called Buraq, let's go up. This is problematic. Especially for those who have undergone the Mi'raj. They know what the Mi'raj is. And the way the Mi'raj is described in the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, you don't have to make it a physical reality. Okay, from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa, it's okay. But in the metaphysical realms of existence, there's no room for physical matter anymore. There's no need to push for that. Where are we going physically? Just keep on going high. I mean, there is no end to the physical world. There's no point that says this is the end. It just keeps on going. Even Apollo can do that. Rockets can go up. That's not of value to go up. And then in the Mi'raj, we have to delicately go through those traditions, explaining them. It says 124,000 prophets came and prayed behind the Holy Prophet. What does that mean? History never recorded anything like that. History never recorded a donkey called Buraq. And then those prophets have passed away. If they're going to come back, according to Ayatollah Jawad, according to Al-Mahdi, according to others, if they've passed away, if they're coming back, how? Make sure you don't fall into reincarnation. It's another difficulty. There are some articles of faith that if you don't be careful, you will be a believer of reincarnation. How do you interpret Al-Madar, for example? Al-Madar is a reality. You believe in it. But how are you going to explain it? You have to be careful here. Same with many other articles of faith. Raj'at is also an important concept. Although I've spoken about that elsewhere, it took 10 sessions. I won't cover that here. But it's important how we have to explain how we can benefit from Raj'at today, how we can undergo Raj'at today. It's very important. In relation to the 12th Imam, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajah Sharif, what does the Dhuhur mean? This is important. This reappearance, the advent of the 12th Imam, this again, the common perspective, it will come one day. Well, what if it comes in 100,000 years' time? I mean, don't get fooled in all these signs and everything. Most of it's a game. People are abusing it. Once upon a time in Iran, I think it was the Shaybani, one of the companions of the 12th Imam, with his signs, they would say, for example, Aghay Rafsanjani was the Shaybani. And then things happened, he fell out of it, he wasn't in favor, and then now they called Ahmadinejad the Shaybani. And that, you can't play around with religion. And even the leader had to come and say, stop, what are you doing? You have to have moderation in relation to these concepts. Every now and again they come with these signs. I mean, I don't know why they're excited. And even if the Imam is going to come, it won't change them. Unless the Zuhur is experienced. Now, if you limit the Zuhur to the physical Zuhur, that, well, you're going to benefit minimally. But there are other definitions of Zuhur which are much more practical. And these actually may even lay the groundwork, the spiritual Zuhur, to the physical Zuhur. In that case, the Zuhur has to be opened up. Qiyam has to be explained what uprising means. Intidhar is something important. When it says intidhar, awaiting, is the best of actions, this is something important. It can't be just awaiting for someone who may come in 100,000 years' time. That can't be the best of actions. Intidhar is important here. The Uraf will enter that scene, explain it. These we have to explain to our communities. Otherwise it's going to be, what they have is okay. There's no problem with that. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to push you in one direction. Islam has many routes, many lanes, many dimensions to it, many degrees. What you have, alhamdulillah, is fine, it's okay, but never suffice with what you have. You know, go higher, be more spiritual. Then in relation to Ashura, here, this is also very important. You see, the stories of the Quran, the stories of the Imams, are stories of the soul. You see, when we see stories in the Holy Quran, don't limit it to a particular narrative and just look at the history of it. That's not the purpose of the story. If that was the purpose, well, many historical books have the same story in much more depth, and you'll enjoy it much more. It's not the history that the Quran wants to demonstrate here. The stories of the Quran are stories of the nafs, stories of the soul, the stories of the prophets, the stories of the imams, are stories of what me and you can be. It's the definition of man. It's what man's identity lies in. It's what man's potential can become. That's what the stories are there for. We can also become Ibrahimi, alayhi salam, Isawi, alayhi salam. On the plains of Karbala, Ashura was a story of the soul, the Qasimi dimension of man, the Hurri dimension of man, the Zainabi dimension of man, the Abbasi dimension of, these are all there for us to grow. In the story of David and Goliath, Dawood and But Dawood alayhi salam, he was in the army of Talut. Saul, the name of Talut is Saul, I think, the biblical name. Saul was a man of God. He wasn't a prophet, but he was a man of God. He would receive revelation. Revelation isn't limited to the prophets. Revelation of two types. There's a legislative revelation that is limited to the prophets. There's a non-legislative revelation open to me and you, male or female, until the last day. Saul, man of God, wasn't a prophet though. But he would receive revelation from God. Would communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There, in the story of Talut and Jalut, Saul and Goliath, somewhere in the Quran, one story, he says, Saul comes and says, Inna Allaha, I think it's Muqtadikum bin Nahar. I don't know exactly. I didn't write the verse down here. Saying, verily Allah is testing you, his army, the army of Saul, Talut. He's testing you with a stream, a river. And this becomes very important here. Story of the soul. We're being tested by a river too, today. But let's go into that story a bit more and then extrapolate for what the message today is. So the story as a physical event, it happened. No one denies that. It's a truth. Saul wanted to fight against Goliath, Jalut. He had an army of many thousands. They had to pass the river. He said, don't drink from it. If you drink from it, you'll get weakened. Most of them did drink from it. And they kept on becoming more and more thirsty. They became weakened. They couldn't fight against the evil forces of Goliath, Jalut. But a few listened and didn't drink from the stream. Now the traditions say there were 313. And they went on and they succeeded and they became victorious in battle. But in the story, the Quran says that Saul said, and here I did write it down, فَمَنْ شَرِبَ مِنْهُ فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. Whoever drinks from the river is not one of us. It's not one of mine. You can't drink from the river. If you drink from the river, you're not one of mine. You're not on the party of Allah. You're not Hizbullah if you drink from the river. Now here, the river has one meaning. The physical river, it happened once upon a time. But the verses of the Quran have an infinite number of dimensions to it. Here, the river, the ocean, the stream, in the logic of the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, is referring to the worldly life. Inna dunya bahrun, faqad ghariqa fiha jaylun kathir. The ocean is, the dunya is, the worldly life is an ocean. Waves of people are going to get drowned in this ocean. فَمَنْ شَرِبَ مِنْهُ فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي. Whoever drinks from it, whoever gets intoxicated in the worldly life, whoever gets absorbed in the worldly life, whoever gets drowned in the worldly life is not one of mine. To be in the party of God, you have to be strong spiritually. You can't drown in the worldly life. And then it continues, إِلَّا مَنِ اغْتَرَفَ قُرْفَةً بِيَدِهِ. Save those who take a handful, that which is necessary. There are some things which you have to do out of necessity. There's no Allah in the equation either. It's okay though, to do it. Now don't get me wrong here. You can go to the workplace, go to the university, marry, have children, have a good job, have a house, car, have entertainment, all these things. It's okay. No one is blocking you from that. But it has to be done Allahfully, not Allah-lessly. Allah has to be in the picture, and we'll speak more about that in the next few nights. It's important. Each action, when there's no Allah in the picture, it's a worldly action. And by the world, I don't mean this physical world. Whatever is in the physical world is good. It's all a creation of Allah. Your take on that is problematic at times. How your take on different things. You say, my car, my house, I did this, I acquired this. See, there's no Allah anymore. These false attributings to the I, they enhance your world, the world life, but it's within. Well, there's everything out there. It's in its place, there's no problem. The reproached world that Amir al-Mu'mineen reproaches, the dunya which he says is bad, it's within. And we'll come to that later. And there are other codes in the stories of the Quran, which I think my time is running out, so I'll just quickly end here. But in the massacre of Karbala too, in the Maqtals, there are many codes. Story of man is being discussed and expressed and manifested on the massacre of Karbala. Yes, it happened 1400 years ago. It's important to continue the tradition. And the emotional aspect is also important. But when you confine it only to the killing and what happened, that's one dimension. It's an important dimension too. But are these codes there? In the very Maqtals that we read every day. But there are codes for man's identity, how the soul can grow. For example, the Qasimi dimension of the human, well, he was a youth. But a youth who said, in relation to death, Ahla min al-asal. Now death means that transition from one realm to another realm. Don't confine it to physical death. It happens on physical death. But that transition from one realm to another, he tasted, he knows what it is. He would love that. Every time one reaches a two-way road, one has to make a decision. Remaining embedded in the worldly life or ascending to a higher realm. We want to ascend to a higher realm. Mutu qabla an tamutu. Once in this world, die before you die. If one understands this well, concepts such as intidar would be easy to explain. Hur, here's a dimension. Hur was a great commander of the army of Yazid. He was maybe the second most prestigious commander. Everyone was scared of Hur. Some reporters say that the only head that wasn't decapitated, that wasn't amputated amongst us, was the head of Hur. The Arabs think, no, we're not going to cut his head. This is Hur. Even though he changed sides at the end. But the enemy didn't cut his head. They didn't even bury him there. They took him to their tribe and they buried him there because he was Hur. Everyone was scared of Hur. Hur was a mighty figure. But Hur, what did he do? The holy dimension. Story of the soul. We have to do it to become Hur-like. Don't lose the plot here. The Maqtals have a message in them. Two things he did. First of all, he expressed utter adab and etiquette before Lady Fatima alayhi salam. And Joe will cover it in the Maqtals, I'm sure you'll do that. Also, he had a vision. He saw heaven and hell. How did he see it? By means of tafakkur, tadabbur. He thought a lot. That adab that he had, and next to that thinking that he did, led him to see heaven and hell. It was an easy choice. He went to the camp of Hussein, alayhi salam. Habib, alayhi salam, Habib ibn Madahir, what did he do? He expressed, and we'll go through the maqtals in the following days, but his zeal with respect to the Ahlul Bayt. He didn't take any nonsense. When the Ahlul Bayt were being blasphemed against, when the Ahlul Bayt were being attacked, he didn't take it. He showed his nature there. That's important for us today. Lady Zainab alayha salam, ma ra'aytu illa jamila. Now this is a very high spiritual status. Lady Zainab alayha salam sometimes says, if only the skies would just be cleft asunder. And then sometimes she says, ma ra'aytu illa jamila. There's a reason these two are different statements. For the common lay person, she expresses it in a manner so that everyone understands the dhulm, the oppression that is occurring. Otherwise, if she was always to say ma ra'aytu illa jamila, history wouldn't record the oppressions of Karbala. She had to speak in a language for the common lay person. It had to be reported. But her own spiritual status, the Zainabi dimension of man, in Karbala there were sins happening, but she only saw Allah. What does that mean? We may touch upon that tomorrow. Then Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam, تذكر عطش الحسين فرمى الماء. He recalled the thirst of Hussein, discarded the water. What does that mean? How can we recall the thirst of Hussein and Ahlul Bayt today? What does water mean for us to discard today? And then Imam Hussein alayhi salam, where it's full of codes in the maqtals. Shem is about to make the final blow. He says, Shem, there's still time. Repent. I will guarantee your intercession. What does this mean? The Imam is the Imam for all. Muslims, non-Muslims, good Muslims, bad Muslims. If the Imam sees an iota of faith in someone, or a potential, a very small potential that they will come on the way, they will guide them. In Karbala, Imam Hussein, the same happened with his father. The same happened with all the Imams if war was to happen. The same will happen when the 12th Imam comes. When he was fighting, he would kill some people, he wouldn't kill some others. Amir al-Mu'mineen in the Battle of Siffin, the same happened. He would just prevent killing other people, but he would kill others. And they would ask him why. Many generations down the family, a follower of Wilaya would come. So not only if there's an iota of faith in the person, even if there will be faith in their lineage downwards, they won't kill. They're not pro-killing. The Holy Prophet never started a war. In Islam, we don't believe in starting wars. It's not our protocol. We don't start wars in Islam. Things may be allowed in the Sharia, but we don't do it. Okay. So this slogan of every land is Karbala and every day is Ashura. Now some people say, well, is it a tradition or not? It doesn't matter whether it's a tradition. It's a fact. It's our motto. We believe in Karbala, Allah's attributes were being manifested maximally. And therefore, that's why our aim is to be a manifestation of Allah's attributes. We want to be representatives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ashura was the epitome of that, with these different dimensions of people being portrayed there, illustrated there. Doesn't matter if there's no tradition. Every day we want to manifest